Everyone in the courtroom could feel the tension. The moment Marcus stepped inside, heads turned, not because of what he'd done, but because of the color of his skin. The judge, known for his cold stare and cutting remarks, looked at Marcus like he already knew the verdict. Marcus stood tall, calm, carrying a quiet dignity that spoke louder than words. He had been pulled over unfairly, ticketed for something he didn't do. But the moment the judge looked at his file, a faint smirk appeared. "So, another one trying to play innocent," the judge said dryly. Marcus simply nodded, respectful yet confident. Inside, he wondered, how many others had been treated the same way before him. The courtroom whispered as the judge began his speech about responsibility and law-abiding citizens. His words dripped with judgment, not justice. Marcus stood still, hands folded, choosing silence over anger. He had faced this tone before, disguised prejudice, hidden behind polite language. But this time was different. This time, he wasn't just defending himself, he was observing. The judge fined him heavily, dismissing his explanations without care. Marcus quietly accepted the paper, nodded, and said, "Thank you, Your Honor." The judge's eyebrows lifted in mock surprise, no argument, no protest. Marcus turned and walked out with calm purpose. The judge didn't know that the man he'd just fined was no ordinary citizen. Outside the courtroom, Marcus sat in his car for a moment, breathing deeply. He had spent years studying law, believing in fairness, believing that the system could work. Now, he'd seen the cracks again, this time from the inside. He thought about how many people had stood in that same courtroom, too afraid to speak, too powerless to fight back. He wasn't one of them. The next day, he returned, not as a defendant, but in his true role. As a federal prosecutor, he was assigned to review judicial ethics cases. And fate had an odd sense of timing. The very same judge's record was sitting in his file. Marcus opened the file slowly, line by line. Complaints from defendants, reports from clerks, patterns of behavior that couldn't be ignored. The judge had been warned before for unprofessional conduct, but nothing had ever changed. Marcus leaned back, eyes steady. This wasn't revenge, this was accountability. Justice wasn't about power, it was about fairness. He prepared his report carefully, every word factual, every point supported by evidence. When he submitted it to the Oversight Committee, he knew he wasn't just speaking for himself, but for every person who had been dismissed, ignored, or judged by something they couldn't change. Weeks later, the judge received a formal notice. A federal ethics review. He read the name on the bottom, Marcus Grant. His face turned pale. That same man, the one he had mocked, was now the prosecutor evaluating him. The courtroom that once echoed with his voice now felt empty. When Marcus entered his office for the meeting, the judge's pride seemed to fade. "Mr. Grant," he said awkwardly, "I didn't realize who you were." Marcus simply replied, "You didn't need to. You just needed to be fair." The silence that followed was heavier than any sentence. The investigation moved forward quietly. Testimonies came in, clerks, lawyers, even other judges spoke about the man's conduct. The truth could no longer hide behind authority. Marcus didn't gloat or celebrate. He worked with grace, professionalism, and restraint. When the findings were released, they confirmed a pattern of bias and misconduct. The judge was suspended indefinitely. News spread quickly, and for once, justice didn't wear a mask, it spoke clearly. The community that had long felt unheard finally saw that integrity could still stand tall. Months later, Marcus stood in that same courtroom again, but this time, as a guest speaker for young lawyers. He spoke not about race or revenge, but about respect and resilience. "Power," he said, "doesn't define justice, character does." The same walls that once witnessed bias now echoed with hope. Marcus walked out with quiet pride, knowing that every calm word, every patient choice, had changed something bigger than one man's fate. The judge had learned a hard lesson. And Marcus had proved that true justice doesn't shout, it stands firm, unshaken, and fair.